Hello guys, and welcome back to the next tutorial in which we will talk about arithmetic operators. And these are basically our simple plus, minus, multiply, um, and divide operators, okay? And um, let's look at how we can use them and how the math is done in which mathematical order. Okay, so let's start with integer, and let's look at simplest example possible. So let's say 5 plus 10. Okay, and so we can um, print it out and see if it will work. Okay, so basically what we're doing, we just taking 5, adding 10, put into x, and we're gonna display it. Okay, so we're gonna do Control F5, and we should see let's see what happens. 15, just as expected. Okay, so this was very simple, but let's look at the little bit more complicated problem so we can see how the math is done. Okay, so let's create another int x, and in this case let's do something more complicated. So let's do 20 minus, and then we can do 2 times 3, and then let's subtract, let's add 4 and see what happens. Okay, so let's run this again. Control F5, and the answer is 18. Okay, and so what I want to point out is that in this case, just like in regular math, what happens here is that the multiplication is done first, and then we take 20, subtract that, and then we add 4 to that. Okay, if we do want to mess with the order and we mean it, we can also, just like in regular math, do parentheses. So if you want this to be done first, and then we want to take 20 and subtract that, then you will do that. So if we and it's gonna be 10. Okay, so now one more thing before we go, or I want to point out that instead of the numbers here, we can do like variables. Okay, and this is how we're gonna use most of the time. We're not just always going to be constantly just doing math like this. We're going to have variables in there that change and produce different results and restore in there again, update the variables. So what we're going to do is I'm going to comment there again and create a couple of variables. So let's do int x, and let's set it equals to 5 in the beginning. Then we create y, and then we create z. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to stack them. So our y is going to equal to x, and let's add 10 to that. Okay, and so now we have a x, we have a y, and now we need a z. So in the z, what we want to do, we just want to take y, and let's multiply by x. Okay, and here we want to print out z, and let's run it first, and then we'll look at the code and see what happens. Okay, Control F5, and the answer is 75. Okay, so let's see what happens, what's happening here. Okay, so first we do x equals 5, we know what that is. Now we initialize y and z here, and then we get in here and we use x, which is in this case is 5, and then it adds 10, becomes 15, and then we get here and we say our z is gonna equal y, which in this case 15, and we're gonna multiply it times 5. Okay, so this is what happens, and it gets stored into the z, and that's where we print it out. Okay, so as you can see, we're using variables that gets changed, and in this situation they're all integers, but we can also use double and other variables as well in different floats and things like that. So one thing that I want to point out is that there's also other math operators, and we will do them later, and they're a little bit more complicated, which is like the sine, cosine. We can get into logs and square roots and powers, and we will get to use them later. And when we use them, actually, we will learn about them. I just want to move on with the simple stuff and get to some cool programs, and we will learn those. And they're pretty simple because we will use the internal math that does it automatically. So we will learn there once we get to that. Okay, so I'll see you in next tutorial.